Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC and today I'm taking a look at the KAIDENG K70C Sky Warrior. A few people are dubbing this the best quadcopter of 2016, which is a pretty bold claim, so let's go and take a look at it. This is a big 340mm brush quadcopter, similar to the WL Toys V666 quadcopter reviewed last year on the channel. It is really cheap, which I think is very appealing at only $89. This is the non-FPV version, but it does come with a 720p camera, which can have its angle changed from the ground. In the box, you get the quadcopter, some landing legs which attach via the included screws and screwdriver, the 720p camera which comes already attached to its vibration dampened mount, a 4GB micro SD card and SD card reader, a 2.4 GHz transmitter, a 2-cell 2000 mAh battery, a charger, a spare set of blades, and some prop guards for beginners. This is a really cheap quadcopter, however it doesn't look cheap at all. I really like the design of this. We have the swept back arms at the back. It's kind of like a hybrid X and H frame in one, with the arms at the front out of the way of the camera's view. It's got an on and off button, which I'm always a fan of, and it's got this RC car style removable lid. If you remove the 3 clips, you can access the flight controller and electronics underneath it. To get the battery in, you need to undo the screw underneath. I will be leaving this screw out for ease of use. The battery cover stays on no problem without it. The battery is using a banana plug. I would have preferred an XT60 so that it is compatible with my hobby grade charger. With the included charger, it will take 200 minutes to charge. That's 3 hours, so it's worth getting some spare batteries or spare connectors to use with a hobby grade charger. It only takes 30 minutes to charge with my B6 AC V2 charger. The battery bay is tight with the standard battery, so there isn't any room for a bigger one, but that is not needed in my opinion. This battery is using 14 gauge wire, which will allow plenty of current to flow with these big motors, and hopefully will mean that the battery will not get too hot. The camera slots in underneath and connects via a push-in plug for its power. You will need to screw it in with the provided screws and screwdriver. It says on the front that it's got a 180-degree wide-angle lens, but it does not appear to be that wide on face value, so I will check that out in the flight test. The SD card slots into the side of the camera. I have taken the camera module apart, and it appears to have a smaller camera mounted on its side. I was looking to see if any of the FPV components have been included, as the FPV version appears to have the same camera, but I can see that there is no video transmitter inside. The camera mount also has this empty clip on the back, which suggests it's there to hold the antenna of the future FPV version. As mentioned before, the camera tilts up and down. I will show you how to do that a bit later. The arms are a tinted perspex, which allows the LEDs to shine through. It's got some really nice LEDs. The backlights strobe through different colours and the front lights stay green. Onto the transmitter, which comes in mode 2 only, I have converted mine to mode 1. We don't have an antenna on this transmitter, but there is one on the inside. We have a blanking plate on the top, which will be where the monitor attaches on the FPV version. The top left shoulder button activates headless mode. Next to this is one key return. For a quadcopter this size, I wouldn't advise using any of these modes. This is just my opinion, but a lot of quadcopters have them these days. On the right-hand buttons, we have low and high rates, and then we have the 360-degree flip button. Press the button and move the pitch or roll axis in the direction you wish to flip. You get one flip per button press. It is usually advised not to flip these big brush quadcopters, as it's been known to burn the motors out from the stress. I have to say though, my V666 is still going strong on its original motors with lots of flips being done. Down at the bottom of the transmitter, we have a snapshot button to take a photo, a video record button, and a lights button to turn the LEDs on and off. The throttle trim button is used to point the camera up and down. To point the camera straight down, you want to pull back on the throttle trim, and to level it back out, push forward on the throttle trim. Before I take it for a flight test, the box states that a GoPro Hero 4 will also fit in this camera case. A problem I have with that is that the quadcopter is $89, a GoPro 4 is $400. So unless you already have a GoPro 4 for another reason, I can't imagine many people using a GoPro with this. The range is also quoted as 100 meters, so I would not want a GoPro falling out of the sky at that height. I do have a GoPro, however, so I will be testing that. I would rather recommend using the Xiaomi Yi with this quad, which is my favourite action cam, and with its low price point it suits this quadcopter much better. There are a few screws on the back of the gimbal which release the standard camera, and also a JST plug. The stock camera gets its power from the quadcopter as well as its PWM value, so the camera can be activated from the ground. Of course, if you plan to add an aftermarket camera to this case, you won't have those features. First of all, let's go and take the standard kit for a fly. Once again, it's a very windy day with a 15-mile-an-hour wind, gusting to 24 miles an hour. I took off first in low rates, which was a bit of a problem in this wind. The low rates are definitely ample in calm weather and great for beginners, but I quickly switched into high rates for the rest of this flight. This gave me enough bank angle to escape the power of the wind. Everything good you may have heard about this quadcopter is true. It does fly superb. It's got so much power compared to my V666. This is going to carry a much heavier camera easily. The stock camera is susceptible to jello in high lighting conditions. That is the case for most of these 720p cameras, and the solution to that is to fly it on an overcast day at dawn or sunset. As you can see here, we have no jello. The camera does record sound as well as video, which is nice. It records the video in 5-minute segments, each segment resulting in a 300 megabyte AVI file. The camera does not appear to have a 180 degree wide angle lens either. It's more like 100 degrees, but it's ample. Changing the angle of the camera is really easy. 7 presses backwards on the trim causes the camera to point directly down, and 4 presses upwards gets it level again. It looks fantastic in the air. It's really unique looking with those swept back arms. In broad daylight it's quite hard to see those onboard LEDs, but at night I bet it looks fantastic. This will be a great night flyer. It's quoted on LightTake's website to have a flight time of 10 minutes. I got around 9 minutes in this heavy wind, so 10 minutes is believable. These geared quadcopters always have a brilliant flight time. The V666 is the same. I think the range is ample for flying this one line of sight. Even on this windy day, I was able to get a decent height. You don't really want to be flying this one line of sight further than 100 meters anyway, otherwise you might lose orientation of it. It's also quite difficult to maintain a steady height at high altitude without an altitude hold feature, so for this line of sight model, the range is fine. I am not experiencing any cutouts, which is something that I had with my V666. Let's do a landing and add the Xiaomi Yi camera. The Xiaomi Yi fits perfectly into the stock case with no modification required at all. The Yi is a lot heavier than the stock camera though, which means that the servo in the gimbal is not strong enough to hold the camera all the way back to point at the ground. The holes line up fine with the camera's on and off button as well as the record button. You also have access to the SD card on the back. Let's take it for a fly and see how it gets on. The Yi has a wider field of view, and due to the fact that its lens is off to one side, we get one of the landing legs in view. With the camera being over double the weight of the stock camera, the stock vibration dampeners are a little too weak, and in this heavy wind we are getting some shakes. You will notice though that there is no jello at all, even in high sunlight. This is totally the best camera to use with this quadcopter in my opinion. This quadcopter can fly so fast, it has no problems at all lifting this camera. It's got so much power compared to my V666. The flight time does suffer slightly having the heavier camera. I was getting a 7-minute flight, which is still not bad at all considering the wind it is fighting. The camera does still angle down enough to make the function worthwhile with a heavier aftermarket camera. Interestingly, the fit of the GoPro 4 is slightly loose compared to the Xiaomi Yi. I think the designers of this quad knew that the Xiaomi Yi was a more likely candidate for an aftermarket camera than the GoPro 4. Either that, or they made the mount slightly bigger to accommodate for a range of different action cameras. On board with the GoPro, and the result is very similar to the Xiaomi Yi. At this point we are just comparing the cameras rather than the quadcopter's ability. I think a GoPro on one of these quads will be a rare sight, but you can see that it does fly fine with one. Is this the best quadcopter of 2016? I think that it's impossible to call any quadcopter the best of its kind. Everyone has different needs and expectations, and I think a few DJI fans may have something to say about that statement as well. This is a really awesome quadcopter though, so I can see why people think so much of it. It flies really smooth, it's loaded with features, it's got a huge amount of power, and therefore it gets my approval. This is a great quadcopter for those who have mastered flying an indoor micro quad and want to move on to something bigger without breaking the bank. So there you go, that is my review of the KAIDENG K70 Sky Warrior. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks to LightTape.com for sending this quadcopter in for review. I will put a link in the description of where to buy it. Thanks so much for watching, and please continue to subscribe for more videos like this. Cheers.